A controversial treatment for multiple sclerosis could soon be available in Canada, and patients in Saskatchewan would be first in line to get it. Premier Brad Wall says his province is willing to fund clinical trials for the so-called liberation procedure. It's a type of angioplasty that unblocks veins in the neck, which MS patients say eases their symptoms. Earlier, the Saskatchewan Premier told CBC News why his province is taking this step.
We have the highest incidence of MS in the country. And so we've had a number of patients and families that are advocating for the treatment. We want to be measured about it. We think a clinical trial is the right place to begin. And so what we're saying is that if the research community brings forward a proposal for clinical trials, we're prepared to fund it. We're prepared to fund those trials in the province of Saskatchewan.
Now, proponents of the treatment, including many MS patients in Canada, have been lobbying to bring it here. Right now, the procedure is only performed in a few European hospitals. A number of Canadians with MS have traveled overseas and paid out of pocket to get it. Duncan Thornton is one of them. He's with us in Winnipeg. And Duncan, I do want to ask you about Saskatchewan's decision to fund these clinical trials. But first, how are you doing 4 months after having the procedure in Poland?
I'm doing great. You know, I haven't felt this well in more than 20 years.
You haven't felt this well in more than 20 years, and what do you attribute that to? Do you attribute it to this liberation procedure?
Yeah, I felt good. I mean, I had more energy the day after the procedure. You know, I was walking around Poland for hours the day after the procedure. I felt more mental clarity. When they released the balloons and I was still on the operating table, you know. So it's pretty easy to kind of connect those dots. Not everybody has that response, but quite a number of us do. And for me, it was almost immediate and dramatic. And it's been 4 months in, and as I say, I haven't felt this well since I was a young man.
So tell me a little bit about that. What was your day-to-day life like when you were when you had MS? What was it like at home? What was it like at work?
Okay, well, first, I still have MS. You know, the neurological stuff, you know, I have patches of numbness. I have difficulty pronouncing certain letters sometimes. Those things haven't gone away, and, you know, maybe they never will. For me, my biggest symptom with MS was always fatigue, cognitive fatigue, and physical fatigue. So I had trouble walking more than 20 minutes. I had trouble concentrating for a long time. I only had a few hours a day when I was really good for anything. You know, I'm a writer, so I could usually get some writing done. But then my work around the house was, say, I was in charge of the couch. You know, my wife was in charge of earning the money and looking after the house and looking after 2 kids.
Now, you went as far as cashing in your retirement savings to fly halfway across the world to get the treatment. Looking back now, was it worth it?
Yeah, that was the best $10,000 I've ever spent. Absolutely. If I needed to, I'd do it again tomorrow. And, you know, I mean, there's the quality of life stuff, which I've been experiencing the last 4 months. But even if I didn't have that, the idea that there's a reasonable chance that this will stop the progression of the MS, you know, that's not worth $10,000. It's worth $100,000. It's worth everything. You know, that's your life. It's MS damages your brain, and it gets worse and worse. So and there aren't other effective treatments, so it was worth everything.
So how do you think other MS patients like you will benefit from Saskatchewan's funding announcement?
Well, I think it gives us reason to hope that this might be moving to Canada. I guess I think all of this would probably be feeling a bit of caution. You know, how big is this trial going to be? What are the timelines? If the result of the trial is that 50 people are going to be studied are going to be treated and then they're going to study the results for another year, and then maybe 2 years down the road they'll be looking at having a bigger trial. Well, for the 3,000 people with MS in Saskatchewan or in Manitoba, for the tens of thousands of people in Canada, that's actually not very helpful. That's actually just going to encourage more of us to fly to Poland or Costa Rica or wherever we can find somebody who'll do it.
Duncan, good to talk to you about this and good to hear that you're doing well. Thanks very much.
Very well, thanks.
Duncan Thornton joining us in Winnipeg.